there was a team who's willing to eat Beal's contract, going all in, how much do you think the Gobert trade just screws up what you should get for a superstar? Do you think the
Big time.
Wizards would be like, oh, but they got 5 firsts for Gobert, that's what we want?
Spending money like it's nothing. I don't have a budget.
I mean, who on these out of these teams? I mean, there's a few teams that I think should already be blowing shit up. Honestly, like who do y'all feel is
Washington, because like you said, it's like you don't have assets, you just have players. I would easily be on the phone with a team like Boston and be like, give me your first round pick for next year and send me Peyton Pritchard and you take Porzingis. Like in theory, it feels like I'm losing, but I'm dumping money. I'm getting a young player and a pick.
Yeah, you can't just trade these guys for nothing. A lot of fans who want their teams to tank are just like, just trade them for whatever. That gets really dangerous because you paid something to get these assets. And if you start just fire sailing for nothing, then that's one, it's a bad look, but two, it sets your franchise back in more than one way. But yeah, if you get a guy like Peyton Pritchard who may not be selling tickets, at least he's a rotation guy plus a first round pick.
And he's serviceable in the now. Like at the very least, if you play him now, he'll go get you 10 points.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Who else they got over there? They got Caldwell Pope, I think. No, they don't have Caldwell Pope.
They traded him for Morris.
Yeah. I know they got some players from Denver. But like you have Gafford who can be traded. You have
who's untradeable on that team? The whole team,
Beal.
I think.
Bill's the only one untradeable because of how much money he's making.
Oh, yeah.
Like he just signed a max extension. So I mean, there's teams out there who will take him, but those are far and few between.
How much do you think? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, if there was a team who's willing to eat Beal's contract, going all in, how much do you think the Gobert trade just screws up what you should get for a superstar? Do you think the Wizards would be like, oh, but they got 5 firsts for Gobert, that's what we want?
I told Nick the other day the Rockets need to trade Eric Gordon before Utah starts fire selling their players and they dictate what the market is. Like, you know what I mean? Like if they trade Jordan Clarkson and they're like, oh, I can yield a first, a second, and a player, and then we go to trade Eric Gordon and we look for the same and don't get it, we end up keeping him. When in actuality, we would have just took a late first round. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's like if Gobert wouldn't have set the market that high with the Gobert trade, I'm 1,000% sure KD would have got traded.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the team. Like
we always talk about the domino effect in sports when it comes to trades, and I really do feel that domino kind of messed up the landscape of that trading. And the only benefit I think of it is that it's playing out so poorly that it may kind of push it back a bit. But I do feel that there's certain teams with assets that if you want to dictate and narrate that trade deadline or that trade area, you need to be the first one to give it off.
I also think there needs to be a trade that like resets the market, to your point. Like if we all remember the Nets Celtics infamous trade, and they still get shit for it when they got KG and Pierce and those guys. And that kind of raised the standard on what to trade for aging veterans. But then how poorly that went and how much how much they got shit on for doing it in Brooklyn, that really corrected the market, because then, other teams were a lot more hesitant to do that because of the backlash. So I think it would be similar in the Gobert trade, where you shouldn't trade 5 firsts and good rotation players for a guy who can't play offense.
The only way that makes sense is out of necessity. Minnesota didn't need that. Like you say you have one of the elite big men in the world, then what did you have to do that for? Because like, if just say that 3 first-round picks spread over 6 years would yield a Bradley Beal trade, I easily see a team like the Hornets doing that. So just imagine going into next season, say the Hornets do get they get the number 1, they draft Victor, they got Ball, and they would say, okay, fuck it. I'm willing to spend a first-round pick over 6 years from this point forward for Bradley Beal, and you go into next season as Ball, Beal, and Victor. But you can't do things like that because I'm not giving up 5 picks.
Yeah, it really caps what Minnesota's going to be able to do. It locks them in.
Especially considering, like, what did Harden get? 3 firsts? We got 3 firsts off the Harden thing? Like, that was fair to me. Yeah. So, like, I'm positive if that would have stayed the market, then a lot of big names would have been traded already.
Well, the contender that's one piece away, teams can jack up their prices. Like the Bucks gave up 3 or 4 for Drew Holiday, but no one really. I mean, some people thought it was a little bit of an overpay, but a lot of people felt, and it turned out to be true, that the Bucks were one piece away. That Eric Bledsoe, although he's lighting it up overseas now, wasn't the guy to lead the Bucks to the title. So they probably overpaid the market value for Drew Holiday, but it turned out to be almost a steal for the Bucks because he's one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. And then they also assumed that would help get Giannis, and then their picks would be at the bottom of the draft anyway. So it's this risk that you take. In Minnesota, they were not one piece away. They were not a Rudy Gobert away from winning the finals. And I think if it was just 5 firsts and they could have ate the contract, which I know wouldn't have added up, it would have been one thing. But the guys they gave up make that even worse. I know we're talking about this again, but it's just so ridiculous what they gave up. Because if they kept those rotation guys and played Walker Kessler, I'm not saying Kessler's better than Gobert right now, but he's serviceable and he's better than anyone they had last year protecting the paint. That's stupid.
But you had Naz Reid who was playing better, so you have big men over there. But that's why other fools ain't going to get traded, because like if you pay that, what if you're a Buck? You know the Bucks. What if I came to you to Chicago and said, okay, give me DeRozan. I don't want to give you a pick, but I'll give you Marjon Beauchamp.
No.
But you know how much DeRozan is going to help that bench.
Yeah, I love Beauchamp though.
He's good.
And that's what's tough with a team like the Bucks. Going back to them in that scenario, it's like, how much do you want to be? You have to think ahead too, because this core around Giannis it's not old, but it's not young. Like Drew Holiday is past 30. Middleton's getting a little up there. And then Lopez is killing it this year, but he's an aging center as well. So it's a little risky doing these trades to get older when you really do need to build a young core like the Warriors did with Poole and that second wave, and they tried with Wiseman, but whatever. But yeah, and DeRozan's an interesting player that you brought up. What about the Bulls? Should they blow it up?
Yeah, they should. They suck. I told you that last year.
They're having confrontation, it seems, even with the Levine stuff coming out, talking to reporters and everything.
But you can't trade him because who wants to pay him that much money?
Who's paying that much for instant offense? Yeah, even the Lakers would probably not.
But you can get shit for DeRozan because he's a rental. Yeah. You can get shit for Vucevic. You know what I mean?
There's a team that I'm sure will take the.
You could get something for Caruso.
Caruso, yeah. I was about to say. Let me ask this. This is a different. It's kind of the same topic, but different one. Who out of those teams that are competing for the championship should make a trade to push them, I guess, further up in it? Because there's a few teams struggling. I mean, you got Brooklyn, you got Golden State, you got a few of these that are kind of at lower than we thought they were going to be.
If I'm Brooklyn, I'm going to get Capella. He's right for the picking.
Brooklyn is scarily playing better than people are giving them attention to. There's been less attention on Brooklyn than the last 2 years, which I think they're fine with. But that's a dangerous team if they do make a big trade, and then Capella would be a good fit. They need a solid rebounder. And what else is Capella known for?
Rebounding lobs. And I guarantee you that they're not going to ask a shit ton for him.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So when doing this exercise, you have to think, could the team win as currently constructed? And right now in the East, I feel like Boston, Milwaukee, Cleveland. It's hard out. You think Cleveland as constructed could?
They have to be. I mean, because you can't take minutes. I mean, you're not going to fuck with the starting lineup.
Yeah, Cleveland doesn't have moves to make.
And I know. And then their bench, you're not going to fuck with that either because those are your picks. Like you're not going to take a Coro out of rotation.
Yeah, I don't think Cleveland. I think Cleveland's a year or two away from actually contending. But yeah, you're right. They can't make a win now trade because that would mess up their whole rotation. And I don't think there's anything wrong, especially Cleveland without LeBron historically. Like playing in the second round or maybe the third round would be huge for them. I mean, it's huge for any franchise. There's nothing shameful about that. So even you can't because Cleveland and Minnesota are somewhat similar. I mean, they both traded for Jazz star players, but Cleveland kept a lot of their assets and kept more of their key rotation guys. So they shouldn't make another trade to remove that because they played it smart, getting Mitchell. They did give up some guys, but they gave up redundant guys. We joked last year how many bigs Cleveland had. Markkanen wasn't getting the wasn't a good fit, and he's a good fit with Utah, so that's great for them.
Sexton was hurt.
Yep, Sexton was hurt all the time, and it's kind of redundant too because Garland did what he did, but better vision. So yeah, it's tough. And then who else? Philly, I think needs to make.
They can't do nothing.
They can't though. Yeah. But they do need to. I don't think they can win the title with this team.
You can. Man, they shouldn't have gave Harden money, bro. He sucks.
They gave him money. They gave PJ money. They just threw money out, and it really isn't amounting to anything.
Yeah. I guess I shouldn't say you can't win with this team. You could, but it would take a lot to go your way to get past Milwaukee and Boston. And honestly, even Cleveland and Brooklyn, I like in the playoffs a little more than Philly.
You can't win when your starting power forward don't score 4 games in a row. You can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, when Tucker was on the Bucks and with the Rockets too, they had enough guys around him, and he knew his role. With the Bucks anyway, it was in the corner. You'll take a couple corner threes a game, but you're hounding the other team's best player. You're hounding Durant. You're hounding him. Yeah. But the Bucks have Giannis, and they had guys who could score and get buckets. And I know Philly has guys who can score, but this version of Tucker is so far removed from even Bucks Tucker, and especially from Houston Tucker.
But I can tell you why. It's not because he changed or he got older. PJ Tucker's used to catching from a driving kick. When he went to Miami, he didn't score shit because he don't know to position him. Like, you're so used to standing in the corner and stretching the floor. Your role changes when the ball's coming to you out of the post. Like, you have to find yourself to an open path. He wasn't able to do that. He goes to Philly, and they're thinking, oh, Embiid will pass it to him. Well, I can't do that because you're standing there and your man's not even trying to double team me. It's just happening opposed to you swinging your fat ass over and getting the ball. So it's just PJ not being aware of what he's supposed to do.
I could be on Doc Rivers too.
Yeah, he's a terrible coach. He needs to be fired.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is he on the hot seat? I think so.
Big time. I mean, Maxey being hurt doesn't help him.
No, I mean they're still doing fine. They're 5 games over 500, and it's early, but I haven't seen anything.
Only tell you this: the eye test tells me that team plays better when Harden's not on the floor. Tobias Harris is a way better player without Harden, and Tobias Harris helps the team more than Harden does, and people don't agree with that because they look at the stat sheet and they'll say Harden 19 and 14 is like, okay.
We've had him here. I mean,
yeah.
I rode for you, but I mean, there was times where, I mean, look at Brooklyn right now. They're firing all cylinders without you.
Yeah.
I mean, Rockets are rebuilding without you. It's not an offense. It's just the way you play, and it's the style you play. And they asked him earlier. They were like, "Do you know?" He's like, "Oh, I changed the game completely. Like, all I'm missing is a championship now." And it's like,
no, like that's why Dallas sucks because Luka does what you do. Every time I watch Dallas, it's like y'all are not going to get anywhere. This will get you only so far. Yeah, they are.
I'm watching us again with Luka. It's like, oh man, it's amazing.
But not as good. They're not. I don't think they're anywhere near as. I think Luka obviously. Well,
Luka
I can tell you why
there's
Harden's a tough comparison, but
they're not as good because we had D'Antoni. Like the person who created this style was orchestrating it, and y'all are just copying us.
Yeah, and you had better pieces around Luka. Watching the Mavericks is kind of sad. They're boring. Like, it's fun to watch Luka to a point, but then it just gets sad. And then it's Luka yelling at guys, yelling at the refs. I guess he has a right to be frustrated, but yeah, what moves do they have to make?
Do you think it's more likely he leaves or they get better with better players?
I think he stays. He's pretty ingrained there, and he signed the extension. So I think in the next, well, if they screw it up and don't get shit around him in the next 5 years, then yeah, he's out. When I was watching the Pelicans the other day, I was like, what are the odds Zion stays with the Pelicans his whole career? And already I feel like it's extremely low.
I agree, but I
Which
think
is
that
sad.
he'll. Well, you got to think about it, man. He came into the league at 19.
Yeah.
So even with the extension, if he signs the extension where he did, it's 5 years from now. So he'll be 26, 27 at that point. It's like, all right, man, I gave you 6, 7 years and we suck just as much as the day you got me. I'm gone. You know?
That's a tough market. Like New Orleans is a great football town, but they don't really give a shit about basketball. They've never had a great fan base. They named their arena Smoothie King. It's just like they have nothing going for them. So and I don't obviously know Zion's intentions, but I just had this feeling like I'd be shocked if he was. It was the same with AD. Everyone knew AD wasn't gonna finish out his career there.
It's the team because you're right about what you're saying, but that shit can be overcome. Look at Giannis.
Yeah.
Look at the Joker. Look at Booker. Like, you don't have those conversations about them.
But yeah, and New Orleans has done everything. I mean, they screwed up a couple years ago with some front office moves, but the last year or two, they've done everything to build a good team around them. So
they got a real GM. That's why.
Yeah.
Ryan Griffin went in there, and they got a real GM, and he knew what he was doing. He has a championship, so we'll see.
But all right, let's talk about the Warriors. Do they have a move to make? Is it just waiting on Curry getting healthy?
I have an idea. So this whole dynasty started when Mark Jackson left and Kerr pulled the trigger on, okay, I'm sending my starters who were at the time Iggy and David Lee to the bench, and I'm starting these young boys, Clay and Draymond. It might be time for Clay to go to the bench and start Jordan Poole.
6-man.
Yeah, I mean, it might be that time because the problem, Draymond's not facilitating offense. That team just needs somebody to start offense for him. And, I mean, you have to get Poole in there.
I mean, Poole went off for 43 points the other day. I mean, acrobatic moves and everything. You're paying him.
They could easily decide to come get like if they want Jayshawn Tate off the Rockets, he does a lot of what Draymond does. He pushes the pace, rebounds, defends.
The perfect trade for him. Man.
Yep, I'll give you Jayshawn Tate and Eric Gordon for James Wiseman, straight up. Both of us kind of get what we want. Will it work? I don't know, but let's see.
Wiseman needs out. He needs a change of scenery.
Yeah, he wasn't prepared for that. To play that way.
Yeah, another thing they did, I mean, they made the Monte Ellis trade for Bogut, which I think a lot of people overlook how much Bogut did for their interior defense in those first runs. And I've heard a lot of things where Turner wouldn't fit their system, but why not get a more traditional rim protector, even if he will slow down your offense somewhat? They don't really have that last line of defense guy to protect the paint. And that's why I don't get the Turner wouldn't fit. Like, yeah, he would change things, but a guy like that he's athletic, he can run.
At the detriment of not screwing what Looney does in the playoffs, there is a big man I would love to see get to the Warriors. Jakob Poeltl's the perfect player for that team. He can shoot the three. He protects the rim. He can rebound. He can move his feet a little bit on switches, and he's not going to bitch about not getting a ton of minutes. He can literally go get less minutes than Looney, and you'll never hear a word about it.
He's still in San Antonio, right?
Yep, he's actually hurt too. But I think that he would be the perfect fit for that because San Antonio might require a player in return opposed to like a pick.
Yeah.
Like if I'm Golden State and San Antonio approaches me and is like, yo, I want Moses Moody for Poeltl, I'm in win now mode, so I'll make that trade.
And Moody hasn't looked nearly as good as Kuminga.
Nope.
Yeah.
I like Kuminga.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know what he does, what his position is, but I
Do you
like him.
think that the Heat or the Hawks can make anything to, I guess, move them up a bit in the East? Or
I think the Heat are going to start playing better. They're just going to figure out. They're like a light version of the Bucks in that regard, where they've had basically the same team for the last few years. And last year they went out, won the 1 seed, and then it ended up not really mattering. I don't think they would ever admit this, but their home court kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the best fans, as we remember from even when LeBron was there, fans leaving early. But because of that, I don't think the 1 seed means as much to them, especially with these older guys like Lowry's 36 and Butler's up there. I kind of like Miami to finish it out better than the Hawks because the Hawks, I think Trey's going to turn her around. He's playing poorly. He's shooting the ball poorly. He's obviously always a minus on defense. The fit with Murray hasn't gone super seamlessly. The Hawks have so much talent. You would assume they would figure it out too, but just with how that team's constructed, I think they got a little bit too excited over the Eastern Finals appearance, which was justified, but that also involved Philly shitting the bed. So it's a little tough to say they were super close, even though they were just a couple of games away from the finals. And Trae Young plays with more balls than anyone, really as much as anyone in the playoffs. But the problem is he's hard to play with in the regular season because he does some of those Luka things of just dominating the ball. And then you have guys like John Collins, and it's like, who are they? They gave up Herter for not much. They did the same with Reddish. They had like almost too many of these good young wings to know what to do with, and I feel like they haven't figured it out yet.
I agree because DeAndre Hunter is underachiever.
Mm-hmm.
But I
He
do
has the tools.
think that Miami, I don't like how that team is put together. He does have the tools. That dude can straight out shoot and he can defend. He should make a lot of money in this league. But I don't know what his problem is. I think it's just the team. I think Miami makes a move because I think it makes them sick to their stomach that they're a worse basketball team than the New York Knicks.
Yeah, I think the
Which
Bulls are an interesting part. Like Levine or
with the Heat, I could see DeRozan going to.
The DeRozan Butler fit would be a little weird.
I don't know what Miami if Miami had picked.
It'd have to be like Duncan Robinson, but his contract's
But
massive.
the thing about DeRozan is he's not going to play defense for you, but you can start DeRozan that team at the power forward. I mean, San Antonio did. They started him at the power forward.
So him, Bam, Butler, Lowry.
If he ever plays. And probably, Struz.
Because they need hero. What's dumb about these? Miami. You what? You just don't like him, yeah. But like Tyler Hero, similar to Poole.
I really don't.
But you're paying these guys these big contracts.
I almost want to say if you do find DeRozan on that team.
You're calling it?
Yeah, Miami sucks. Do what?
What about the Clippers?
The Clippers to me are like the Philly of the West, where we'll see what happens in the playoffs, but they've just been so inconsistent and they have all this talent, but none of it matters till the playoffs. I think they're better coached than the Sixers, but getting Kawhi healthy for the playoffs and seeing what that means at this point in his career is what it's going to come down to. Paul George hasn't played bad. Paul George is going to do what Paul George does. I think they're on the same tier as Philly where they could contend, but it's going to take breaks to go their way and health.
If they don't win a ring this year, then I trade Paul George this offseason. I straight up trade Paul George before he loses any value. Because you didn't get picks back. You gave up picks for him. I don't know where I would put him to. Can't keep you.
Man,
I think that team is another big man.
You don't like Zubac?
I like Zubac. But you could always use more bigs.
You know,
no, I do like Zubac, but when he goes to the bench, then what?
You got what's his name?
Haven't seen. No, they got rid of haven't seen.
Right. What was his name? Hardenstein or whatever.
Yeah, he went to the Knicks. Hardenstein.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
But like Denver is doing really good. They're tied for first. That's a big ass team.
Denver's defense is the worry point. But yeah, Denver's explosive enough where it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see once again in the playoffs because everything slows down how that works. But I'm kind of feeling it with Jokic too because a lot of people, I don't say disrespect Jokic, but to me, Jokic is where Giannis was right before they won a title, where he's got the MVPs, but no one really takes him as seriously as they should because of the playoff lack of success, even though it hasn't been Jokic's fault. Like last year, that team he was dragging was so hurt and so thin that I'm really high on Denver this year. I wouldn't be shocked if they make it out of the West. They're going to have to play better defense, but I think if Murray and Porter are healthy come playoff time, they're going to be tough to deal with. And yeah, you're right. I don't think Zubac is going to be stopping Jokic. So if that's the team you have to beat, another potential Capella.
I don't think any team in the West, like, can you actually look at any team in the West and say y'all's bigs can play with Denver? Maybe the Pelicans. That's about it. I mean, it's supposed to be Minnesota, but their sorry ass ain't going to be around.
Unless you think DeAndre Ayton could, but
I'm not high on DeAndre Ayton. I don't think he's a bad player, but I don't think I think he's like middle. He's the Miles Turner, Capella of the worlds to me.
Yeah, that Suns team has other problems with them arguing with each other. So I really don't see a big man that could guard against Joker on any of these teams.
What's not only that is Joker. You got Michael Green coming up, and he's aggressive. Gordon, Porter can play the 4. That's a pretty big team.
How much I'm working for this? I swear my dreams are too important.